One thing that tends to be a contentious point among the red-faced pissants who like to pretend they're my detractors is that I frequently highlighted Family Guy as one of my favorite TV shows while frequently lambasting South Park as nonsensical garbage, saying that I can't say that it's better than South Park on an objective level. I mean, I can. I'm gonna do it right now. Watch. Family Guy is better than South Park on an objective level. But the validity of Family Guy as a sitcom isn't why I brought it up today. You see, much like Brotherhood Social, one particular episode continues to be brought to me as an example of why the series is complete and total garbage. Quagmire's dad. Presumably because I'm transgender, people think I would be all for piddling all over this episode, which is strange because on the list of my favorite episodes of Family Guy, Quagmire's dad sits squarely at number 1, and that hasn't changed since starting my gender transition. In fact, my adoration of the episode only grows the further along I get. So let's unpack Family Guy and be positive for once, and make neocon comments creatures angry and butthurt again, shall we? One of the premises Family Guy works off is that everyone on Spooner Street is a fucking asshole. This is most frequently used to drive the overall gag humor, usually with Peter doing something extremely stupid and inappropriate, but sometimes it's used to drive a salient point, like this clip from Baby Got Black.
I'm sorry, Chris. Jerome just doesn't think his daughter should date a white guy.
Black racism is the biggest problem facing this country today.
You see what the show's done? By having Peter recite that line with a totally straight face, Family Guy is expecting you, the viewer, to connect the dots of that joke yourself. There are totally people out there who sneer at the idea that racism is still a problem in America, yet throw a tantrum when someone makes a glib remark at the expense of white people. So by attributing that sentiment to Peter, a man who once tried to stick his tongue in a desk fan, the writers are subtly saying, hey you there, writing out your manifesto about impending white genocide? This is you. This is what we think of you. And that's a single joke. Quagmire's dad is an entire episode of this, from Peter and Lois's tactless jokes to Quagmire being a hyperdramatic jagoff about the whole thing to Brian projectile vomiting for 20 straight seconds. It's all coated in a very thick layer of venom toward the people who pull this garbage in real life. Now, claims that shows like this are actually satirizing bigotry when they engage in it themselves are pretty damn common, and in 90% of cases it's actually complete bullshit. But there's a very big, obvious giveaway that Family Guy is using Spooner Street's reputation of a breeding ground for assholes to make a subtle point. Ida herself. You ever stop and really look at Ida? Nothing about her is stereotyped, aside from the fact that she appears to have had a complete gender transition in a matter of hours, but I'm willing to chalk that up to there being only 20 minutes to get to the point. She's very polite, she's extraordinarily patient with the Griffin's increasingly invasive questions, more patient than I would be, and is pretty damn blunt when Quagmire starts making mountains out of molehills.
I don't even know what to call you. My dad? My other mother? My friend who pees sitting down but can also palm a basketball?
What about Ida?
Oh.
Ida is noteworthy in being quite literally the only character in the series who isn't an asshole in any way, shape, or form. Everyone else is an asshole around her, and she quite literally does nothing to warrant it, which is exactly how most trans people face these kind of people in real life. Their anxieties are fueled by nothing more than delusional fear-mongering and a stubborn adherence to tradition. She's far more patient than she really ought to be, but she never lashes out at anyone, which does the job of making the reactions of the people around her all the more ridiculous by comparison. And her future appearances only continue this trend, with Ida being incredibly friendly and everyone around her being skittish about her for no reason. Of course, the problem with Family Guy is that this dynamic doesn't work for the kind of people who rant about cartoons on DeviantArt. There's this underlying misconception that characters in the role of the protagonist must be characters you can root for 100% of the time. Now, anybody with 2 brain cells to rub together will instantly know this to be false, and that good protagonists, especially in a TV show, are protagonists who learn and grow, not characters who are 100% in the right all the time so you can feel comfortable about cheering them on. Family Guy is a show where the entire cast is Archie Bunker, an ignorant, vulgar tool who's always being used as a vessel to be taught lessons by the experiences around him. And while those lessons rarely stick from episode to episode, they apply very well when contained within the episode itself. And that's what Quagmire's dad does in spades. It showcases behavior that any trans person has likely seen the people around them, even their own family, showcase, and mercilessly mock said transphobic people in the most brutal way Family Guy knows how, by comparing them to Peter Griffin. And in a later episode, they do this again when Brian looks to Ida for backup regarding Kevin deserting the military, only for Ida to tell Brian he's wrong, and for Brian to immediately dismiss it.
Look, I think you guys are all rushing to judge Kevin without knowing what it was like to be in his shoes. He saw horrific things in a horrific war that only one other person here could possibly come close to understanding. Ida. She was in the military. She's seen battle. She's seen innocent people butchered by war machines, and I'm sure that Ida, more than anyone else here, can understand and support the choice that Kevin made. No, Brian. I do not understand Kevin's choice, and I do not support it.
Okay, well, that's just some dumb drag queen.
Now you might write that off as inappropriate, but this is quite literally the attitude that led to this video What I Done being made. This is a trick they've played a few times, most notably with Hot Shots, where the best way to showcase how fucking stupid anti-vaxxers are is to just make Peter and Lois into anti-vaxxers, complete with Lois giving a glib remark about liberal Hollywood lecturing her, despite her being so insane she created an epidemic in her town. That's always been the more interesting thing about Seth MacFarlane. He's actually an extremely progressive person, fighting for the rights of workers and pushing LGBT issues as often as he can, and that shows in the majority of episodes of Family Guy. It's often garnered criticism for also making fun of those exact issues, but the actual makeup of the humor is, look, we made a dumb pun, or hey look, Peter's busting Quagmire's balls for being anxious about Ida's transition, and other rather typical humor you'd expect from a professional class clown. Let's directly compare Family Guy and South Park in this regard, shall we? Family Guy's most noteworthy joke about trans people is a pun about deboned chicken.
Happy Thanksgiving! We brought chicken wings.
Oh, yum! I hope they're the kind with the bone removed.
South Park's most noteworthy joke about trans people is comparing them to someone wanting to transform into a dolphin, which is just the old tired attack helicopter bullshit repackaged into a new form. The big difference between the jokes is that the pun is lighthearted and affectionate, and it's also clever and funny. The dolphin bullshit is hateful and boring. That's both comedy faux pas right there. That's not to say that Family Guy is an amazing show and every joke lands. Episodes like Pilling Me Softly are genuinely shit, but if I'm not gonna throw away Friendship is Magic just because it occasionally produces a Newbie Dash or a Do Princesses Dream of Magic Sheep, I'm not gonna throw away Family Guy on those failures either. Quagmire's dad is a walking example of the argument I always make when people ask why I like Family Guy over South Park. Family Guy is far more clever and insightful than people often give it credit for, coming down on the correct side of most issues but blowing raspberries and singing show tunes and making dumb puns the entire way. South Park is little more than increasingly elaborate shock humor with conservative status quo preaching from episode to episode, a shtick that is quickly being supplanted by YouTubers who are pulling the same shtick of pretending to be centrists while spouting far-right rhetoric. It really should not be a surprise that out of the two shows, I prefer the one that doesn't indirectly claim that my very existence is too much for them to handle. South Park appeals most prominently to reactionary saddos who sincerely believe that Tumblr is going to destroy Western civilization. And I would think people would know by now that I'm not that kind of delusional sociopathic nutcase. I mean, I'm transgender, I live in Atlantic Canada, I once made that exact kind of delusional saddo cry by not validating their bullshit, you know, just normal socialist stuff. Unfortunately, pretending that Family Guy is the scourge of Western animation and that Seth MacFarlane is Satan himself is such a common bandwagon to jump on that this critical dissonance is sadly surprising. So many people seem to have a seething hatred for Family Guy, but when pressed for a reason, the most they can do is list rather neutral qualities like the gags and the fact that the Griffins are dicks, and then immediately turn around and praise South Park for the exact same thing. Hell, most of them are too lazy to even do that and instead just link me to one of the mysterious Mr. Enter's cacophonous rants, which is like saying, hey, here's a nuanced and level-headed take on immigration from John's Rod. You mean a man who likes to strip all the humanity out of a real-life situation and replace it with statistics, or who once claimed that being accused of rape is worse than being raped, or who thinks mean-spirited is enough to claim an episode is terrible, thinks Family Guy is garbage? Well, that's nice, I guess, but I'd like to hear from someone with some actual brain cells and a sliver of intuition. I would think after doing this show for the past 2 years and having episodes like Self-Destruction, Guard Break, and The Legacy of Kingdom Hearts, people wouldn't be so dumb to assume that my liking a show means I must think it's perfect and above reproach. In fact, if anything, I would probably be a lot better at zeroing in on the flaws of Family Guy more than its usual detractors, because I have the advantage of having bothered to actually watch it and have enough capacity for intuition that I'm not going to think that belching statistics can be used as a substitute for actual critique. The fact of the matter is that Family Guy makes me laugh more often than it doesn't. For all the talk about it relying on shock value and bigotry for its humor, the vast majority of the show's jokes are made up of silly little shorts, pop culture gags, and puns. I don't think I've ever laughed as hard as I did at the montage of Peter getting hit in the crotch with a bag of nickels, and that's some pretty lowbrow humor, and the fact that Peter's a jackass makes it all the more satisfying. I'd play that clip, but I'd probably get content ID'd. You know what, let's play it anyway. Fox usually accepts disputes.
Ow! Damn it! No! Why? Hey, Lois, you should do that thing that I like. Ah! Hey, kids, have you seen my wallet? Oh, nickels! Son of a bitch! Ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached our cruising... Ah, damn it! Boy, can't beat this weather. God, who is that kid? Oh! Hello? Hang on, I'll check. Phone call for a bag of nickels? Ah! Ah! At least he was alone. They usually travel in threes. Ow! Crap! Bad. Ah, nickels! Ah! damn it! Do you think I'm ever gonna be able to have... Oh! Ow!